Hey guys, what's going on? It's Matt Winning at winningstrength.com, and this is Winning Wednesday. And I got a DM that I thought was interesting a couple of days ago that had me thinking about shooting this exact video for you guys on the YouTube channel. And I felt like it was important enough to put out openly for all of you guys that are not Patreon members, but just in case you want a higher level ability to ask questions, and me answer them personally, as well as see the workouts that we do both at the gym and with all the clientele that I train throughout the week. Please go on Patreon and join to help us with the overhead costs of all of the free media stuff that we put out, both on YouTube and in other different places like Facebook, etc. With that being said, this particular episode is brought to you by ATP Labs. The discount code for ATP Labs, if you want to order some of the highest grade supplementation in the world, all regulated by their FDA standards in Canada, is Winning Strength, all caps. That'll get you 10% off of orders. And we have higher discount codes located on the Patreon channel, depending on which tier you're at. Upwards of 25% off, which saves you more than the top tier Patreon costs per month on just one order of fish oil or protein powder or whatever that you may be getting at. So to the original topic that we have today on Winning Wednesday, this topic is anabolics and lifting. And I know this is a controversial topic. Hopefully YouTube doesn't flag me on this. But my statements on this might be a little different than what you think. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background. One, I was a very good drug-free lifter for many, many years before I decided to go the professional route and take anything. So with that being said, I think that the most important thing that I can tell you guys is that make sure that you make it somewhere naturally, at least 6, 7, upwards of 10 years before you decide that that's the route you want to go. Too often do we hear people talking about lifting for a month or 6 months or even a year, and then after a year, they feel that they have earned the right to take anabolic steroids. And at the end of the day, that's not the case. If you look at some of the best conglomerate teams ever created from the Eastern Bloc countries, i.e. the Eastern Germans, they were not allowed to take anything until they were at least 24 years old and had at least 10 years experience with their particular sport and or weightlifting in general. So that's something to keep in context and make sure that you're putting the natural time in before that might be an option for you to do. So in my personal opinion, you have to build a solid foundational base of natural strength before that even can be an option. In my personal realm, I squatted 903, bench pressed 572, and deadlifted 722 before I took anything. So I want to make sure that everybody has that crystal clear and understands that. At the age of 25 is when I started the process of using anabolics, but doing so was in a TRT doctor-controlled situation. So I'm going to give you some background on that. In 2003, I was 23 going on 24 years old. I had just won the last collegiate nationals that I was eligible for with somewhere around a 2,100 total, which was impressive as a junior, a drug-free junior, and I started to have issues with recovery. So I went in and had blood work done and went to a specialist and found out that my testosterone level was in the mid to low 300s. So we're talking like 325, 330. Now, medically low is 250, but for me to be that strong with that low of a testosterone level should automatically get you guys to realize that testosterone is not the only factor in getting super strong. So at that time, I go see an endocrinologist. They see the blood work is low, and they realize that I probably need to be optimized. Still falling within the drug-tested realm, I stayed around 750 with an additional half of a cc of cypionate for about the next 4 to 5 years, which allotted me a 1055 squat. And then I was flipping into multiply gear, so the bench was up into the mid 7s and the deadlift was up into the mid 7s. So as you can see, there was progression. whether that had to do with optimizing my hormones or just extra time training. I can leave that up to you guys to decide what that is. But point being is, never went too crazy with it and was always getting blood work drawn for it. When I moved over to Columbus, Ohio full-time after my master's degree, I go and I meet Dr. Serrano, and that's when Serrano said, you know, we need to get you around 950, 1,000. So that bumped me up to 1 cc per week. Still under the recommendations of a doctor and a close, you know, proximity to their education and blood work level. I stayed at that until I was about in my early mid-30s. Case in point, you know, got up to mid 1,100 pound squat, 800 plus bench, 800 plus deadlift. Now, with that being said, my levels never really went over that 1,000 to 1,050, maybe 1,100 mark, because after that point, I actually felt nauseous and my body actually fought against the extra anabolics. Now, if I were a bodybuilder, then my ability to feel athletic would not have been as big of a deal, because I wasn't, as a bodybuilder, you're not trying to lift 3 and 4 times body weight on particular lifts. You're trying to attack hypertrophy, which tends to be lighter weights with more repetitions. So for me, I had to balance out what made me feel athletic and what made me feel stronger without making me feel too bad. And I'm just giving you guys this as personal information, but anabolics are one of those things that you need to try. This is the chapter 2 of this, is that you need to try to max out everything you possibly can naturally first. So one way to increase testosterone is to make sure that your vitamin D levels are good. So vitamin D as in dog, vitamin D is one of the precursors to making testosterone for your body. So if you have low vitamin D, you're going to have issues making testosterone. One way you can do that is sunlight exposure, which can be good and bad depending on genetics and your risk to skin cancers and things of that nature. Another way can be eating dairy products, and another more supplemental way is taking ATP Labs vitamin D with K2. Now, if you're taking vitamin D, you need to have vitamin D conjoined in with K2, and that protects the vitamin D from causing calcification in your blood vessels. So the vitamin K is crucial when you're taking vitamin D. So make sure that you have that in case. That's why ATP Labs combines the two together. So that's one thing. The next thing that affects testosterone level is inflammation. So if you have high inflammation, i.e. you're eating a lot of processed foods, you genetically have higher inflammation levels, you're going to want to lower those down so that your body can make more testosterone. We can do that a couple of ways. One, you can eat a lot cleaner, which is why some people choose powerlifting over bodybuilding, is because their diet doesn't have to be as stringent. But what I found was I was actually my strongest when my diet was as tuned in as my training. So that can be a huge issue as well. I know a lot of people think, you know, I don't need to worry about dieting. All I want to be is a super strong guy. Eventually, those goals become one and the same. And I didn't learn that until my late 20s, early 30s. I just tried to get as big as I could to get as strong as I could. And, you know, luckily learned from my mistakes much sooner than when I started to cause any really severe damage. But my point being is, if you think that drugs are going to mask a poor diet or poor training habits, you're absolutely incorrect. It will not do that. So making sure that your inflammation is low. ATP has a product called Anti-Inflam, which is really good. And also making sure that you have high omega-3s and fish oils can also reduce the properties of inflammation, helping you make more testosterone. We've actually seen how many points has your testosterone been up since you've been here?
Like 160.
So my intern that's 19 has had his testosterone level go up 160 points in the last 6 weeks of him being here, from focusing on training smarter and not overdoing it, eating cleaner, and then getting optimal rest. So that's the next thing that affects testosterone, is your rest and sleep quality. Those are huge factors, and a lot of those can be designated towards magnesium. So magnesium has a huge factor in how well you sleep. So I prefer taking ATP Center Mag. There are natural ways to get magnesium, but a lot of that has been depleted out of the soils due to mass farming that we've done. So it can be difficult to get that level of magnesium that you need. If you need a recommendation for how much magnesium, sign up for an assessment here. We can do a bioprint, and I can tell you about how much you're going to need per day. So it is individual. but magnesium is a huge factor in sleep quality and sleep depth. So if you're not sleeping well, your testosterone level is not going to be really well. The next big thing is that once you have maxed that out and you've made your nutrition as clean as possible, you've managed stress, then you can start to focus on the training aspect. So what you find is that although training heavy, especially multi-joint movements like squatting and deadlifting, tend to raise testosterone, there is a fine line between doing just enough and doing too much. So what I find is that really, if you're trying to increase testosterone level, you probably can't do damage to those compound movements more than every 72 hours, which leads us into how to train smarter. So if you're having trouble figuring out how to train smarter, I highly suggest you join Patreon and get to the workouts that we're doing. Same one that my intern Phil's doing right now, and his testosterone level goes up 160 points naturally. So point being is there are ways to fix some of it naturally. Some people are not going to be fixable naturally and need to go to those drugs. But I think the big thing that I see now, especially at the fire departments and with other clientele, is that a lot of people jump on the bandwagon to going on to testosterone far too fast before they actually fix their lifestyle, which is like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. So those are my recommendations for anabolics. Don't do it blindly. Make sure you get a prescription and do it the right way, because they are still considered a controlled substance. Make sure that your doctor knows so they can adjust, if you need to give blood for your hematocrit or hemoglobin, to make sure your blood's not too thick, which can cause strokes and other types of vessel issues. You make sure those are straightened out. And if you're doing it just out of the gym and you don't really know, one, you don't know the quality or the purity, and two, you're not keeping track of what's going on in your bloodstream, which is basically like firing a shotgun in the midnight pitch black. You have no idea what you're shooting at and what you're doing, which can cause major ramifications down the road. So I hope this video has helped you guys a little bit with how I feel testosterone is labeled, and also how you need to go to all these factors to fix it naturally due to supplementation, training, and sleep, more so than actual supplementation of the drug itself. Try to max all of that out before you reach that particular point of deciding that anabolics are good for you. So if you guys can, please visit winningstrength.com, take a look at some of the manuals, come on to online coaching if you like, and if the bare minimum, join the upper tier Patreon and see those workouts to see how we're able to bump a 19-year-old's testosterone level up like 160 points in like 7 weeks just by training smarter. So talk to you guys soon.